All right, Brandermill, get ready for your community deep dive. We're looking at the February 24th update, and let me tell you, there's a lot to unpack. We've got some important votes coming up, a deadline you don't want to miss, and even a little reminder to be mindful of our hardworking maintenance crews.
It's fascinating how these updates really offer just a glimpse into the heartbeat of a community. You see democracy in action, the nuts and bolts of community management, and even those little reminders that help keep everything running smoothly.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so first up, it's voting time. You've probably heard about the proposed amendments to the association's governing documents, specifically Articles V and 7 coming up for a vote in April. But what do these articles actually do?
Well, Article V focuses on the powers and duties of the board of directors. It's kind of like the rule book for how our community leaders operate. And then Article 7, that's all about the financial side of things. Assessments, reserve funds, all the nitty-gritty that keeps Brandermill functioning.
So these amendments aren't just like bureaucratic tweaks. They actually have the potential to really shape how our community is run and how our money is managed.
Exactly. And that's why it's so important for residents to understand what's being proposed and to make their voices heard. The community is hosting 2 meetings to kind of break it all down. There's the Neighborhood Advocacy Council meeting on March 3rd and a town hall meeting on March 11th.
Now, for those who might be new to Brandermill, the NAC is a group of residents who act as liaisons between the community and the board of directors. They're a great resource for information and advocacy.
Absolutely. Attending these meetings is a chance to ask questions, get clarification, and really understand how these amendments could impact your day-to-day life in Brandermill.
And speaking of having your voice heard, remember the upcoming board of directors election. The BCA has laid out a really detailed election calendar, and it's all about transparency. You can think of it as a roadmap guiding us from candidate nominations, which, by the way, are due today, February 24th at noon, all the way to the final annual meeting on April 23rd.
What I find interesting here is that the community is making a real conscious effort to ensure every step of the election process is open and accessible to residents. This is about empowering you to be informed participants in choosing your community's leadership.
Okay, so let's switch gears a little bit and talk about those amenity renewals. The deadline was February 15th, and late fees are now officially in effect. So if you haven't renewed your boat, kayak, or any other amenity registrations, you'll want to do that ASAP to avoid those extra charges.
This is a great example of how community associations work. These fees aren't just about generating revenue. They're about ensuring that everyone who uses the amenities contributes to their upkeep. Yeah. It's a collective responsibility.
Right. The episode outlines 3 pretty straightforward steps to complete your renewal. And once you've renewed, swing by the BCA office to grab your sticker. Trust me, that little sticker goes a long way in avoiding a violation notice.
And let's be honest, nobody wants to deal with the hassle of a violation notice, especially when it's something as simple as renewing your amenity registration.
Okay, so before we move on to other news, let's take a moment to acknowledge the important role that meetings play in a community like ours. Tonight, February 24th, there's a board of directors meeting being held via Zoom. Whether you attend or not, it's important to recognize that this is where decisions that impact our community are made.
You can think of it as a window into how Brandermill operates. Attending meetings, even virtually, is a way to stay informed, engaged, and potentially even influence those decisions.
Yeah, it's easy to kind of overlook those meetings sometimes, but they're really the foundation of a well-functioning community, right? It's where ideas are debated, decisions are made, transparency is put into practice.
Yeah, exactly. There's also an architectural review committee meeting happening next Tuesday, February 25th at the BCA office. And for anyone interested in community legal matters, there's a hearing panel meeting on Thursday, February 27th, also taking place via Zoom.
It's remarkable how much goes on behind the scenes to keep a community like Brandermill running. From architectural standards to resolving disputes, it's like a whole complex ecosystem. It really is. And March is shaping up to be a busy month, too. Remember that Warsaw-Minded meeting we talked about earlier on the 3rd? Mm-hmm. Well, right after that, there's the Community Association Managers meeting on Tuesday, March 4th, and that's happening virtually.
Wow, so many opportunities for residents to really plug in and stay in the loop.
Okay, so let's shift gears again and talk about some maintenance matters. Heads up, if you use the pathway at the intersection of Planters Wood Road and Old Barn Court.
Oh yeah, some repaving work is scheduled for later this week to enlarge a drainage pipe. It's expected to take about 3 days, weather permitting, of course.
So a little temporary inconvenience, but in the grand scheme of things, it's a small price to pay for a well-maintained community.
Speaking of ongoing efforts, the cleanup from those recent storms is still underway.
Yeah, our awesome maintenance team is working hard to clear trees and debris, but some areas are still tough to get to because of the lingering wet conditions. It's a good reminder that, nature can throw us some curveballs sometimes, and patience is key. Absolutely. VDOT is handling the cleanup for those bigger areas, which is great. And speaking of which, let's talk about those hardworking BCA maintenance trucks. We see them around all the time, but we don't always think about how crucial their role is.
Oh, they're totally the unsung heroes of a well-functioning community.
Yeah.
From landscaping to repairs, they're constantly on the move, keeping Brandermill beautiful and safe.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that brings us to a little friendly reminder from the BCA. When you see those maintenance trucks out and about, give them a wide berth. They may need to be partially in the roadway while they're working, so it's all about safety first.
It's a small gesture, but it makes a big difference, showing appreciation for their hard work and ensuring everyone's well-being.
Okay, so let's circle back to those proposed amendments to the governing documents.
Yeah.
We touched on them earlier, but it's worth diving a little deeper. Article V, which deals with the powers and duties of the board of directors, has some really interesting changes being proposed.
One thing that really stands out is the clarification of the board's authority on things like rule enforcement and architectural standards. It's about defining boundaries and ensuring consistency in how those rules are applied.
And it's important to remember that these rules aren't just arbitrary. They're there to maintain the aesthetic appeal and property values of our community. It's about protecting everyone's investment in Brandermill.
Precisely. And there are also some provisions in Article V related to electronic voting and meeting procedures, which reflects, the evolving ways we do business in this digital age.
It's kind of fascinating to see how these governing documents are adapting to keep pace with technology and those modern community management practices. It's about making participation more accessible and convenient for residents.
Absolutely. And Article 7, which focuses on assessments and finances, also has some key amendments being proposed.
Ah, yes. This one always gets people's attention because it directly impacts their wallets. But it's important to understand that these assessments aren't just about collecting money. They're really the lifeblood of our community.
Yeah, they fund everything, from landscaping and maintenance to amenities and security. It's about investing in the things that make Brandermill a desirable place to live.
Right. The proposed amendments aim to streamline the process for collecting assessments, which ensures a consistent and fair system for all residents. It's about removing any ambiguity and creating a level playing field.
And there are also provisions related to reserve funds, which are super crucial for long-term maintenance and those unexpected expenses that, inevitably pop up.
You can think of it as a rainy day fund for the community. It's about being fiscally responsible and planning for the future.
These amendments are all about ensuring Brandermill remains a thriving and well-maintained community for years to come. It's about being proactive and addressing any potential challenges before they become major issues.
So remember those meetings on March 3rd and 11th. Those are your chances to get all the details about these proposed amendments and ask any questions you might have.
Yeah, don't underestimate the power of your vote. This is your opportunity to directly shape the future of Brandermill.
Now, before we wrap up this deep dive, let's touch on those amenity renewals again. The deadline may have passed, but it's not too late to get things squared away.
That's right. If you've already done the registration but haven't picked up your sticker, just head over to the BCA office with your ID. They'll be happy to help you out.
And if you haven't even started the renewal process yet, don't panic. You still have a little time, but remember those towing stickers go out next week.
Oh yeah, that's right. You have 7 days after you get a towing sticker to either move your vessel or complete the renewal process.
The BCA has been making courtesy calls to remind residents about renewals, and they even extended the deadline by 30 days. Talk about going above and beyond.
It really shows their commitment to helping residents stay in compliance and avoid any unnecessary hassle.
So to complete your renewal, you'll need to fill out the renewal form, which you can find online or at the BCA office. And for motorized boats, vessels, and trailers, you'll need to provide proof of current registration and insurance.
And for kayaks and canoes, just make sure you've got your serial numbers handy. It's a pretty straightforward process.
And remember, those renewals help make sure our amenities are well maintained and accessible for everyone to enjoy. It's about sharing the responsibility and keeping those recreational opportunities available to all residents.
All right, so shifting gears back to those upcoming meetings, there are a few more worth mentioning. On Monday, March 10th, keep an eye out for an email from Vote HOA Now. That's where you'll find your voting instructions for the Board of Directors election.
So make sure your contact information is up to date with the BCA. You don't want to miss that crucial email.
And then just 2 weeks later, on Monday, March 24th, there's another board of directors meeting happening via Zoom. This one's all about tying up loose ends before the final election push.
And we've got back-to-back meetings the week of the annual meeting. On Monday, April 21st, there's a board of directors meeting at North Beach with the virtual option for anyone who prefers to attend remotely.
And then finally, the big day arrives Wednesday, April 23rd. That's when the annual meeting takes place, also at North Beach, with a virtual option available. This is where the results of the election will be announced and new board members will be officially welcomed.
It's going to be an exciting time for Brandermill. And remember, those proxies are due by 5 p.m. on Friday, April 18th, so don't miss that deadline if you can't attend the annual meeting in person.
Every vote counts, so make sure your voice is heard whether you're attending in person or casting your vote remotely.
And don't forget about the town hall meeting on March 11th at the North Beach Clubhouse.
Oh, right. That's at 6:00 p.m. And it's a great chance to get more information about those proposed amendments to the association's governing documents before they hit the ballot in April.
We've covered a lot of ground today, but hopefully you're feeling more informed and engaged with everything going on in our community. Remember, knowledge is power. And in a community like Brandermill, that power lies in the hands of its residents. All right, so before we wrap up, let's just touch on a few final reminders about those ongoing maintenance projects. We mentioned that repaving work happening at the intersection of Planters Wood Road and Old Barn Court.
Right, if you're in that area, just proceed with caution and expect some, minor disruptions.
Yep. It's a short-term inconvenience, but it's for a long-term improvement to our community's infrastructure.
And don't forget, crews are still working hard to clean up from all those recent storms.
Yeah, some areas are still wet and kind of difficult to access.
Yeah.
So continued patience is definitely appreciated.
Yeah, VDOT is handling the cleanup for those larger areas, which is good because that frees up our own maintenance crews to focus on the, more localized needs.
Okay, speaking of which, that brings us to our final reminder for this deep dive. When you see those BCA maintenance trucks out and about, please give them a wide berth.
Yeah, they might be partially in the roadway while they're working. So slowing down and giving them plenty of space is really crucial.
Exactly. It's all about, ensuring the safety of both our maintenance crews and our fellow residents.
Yeah, little acts of awareness like that make a big difference in fostering a culture of respect and appreciation for those who work hard to keep our community running smoothly.
Well, there you have it, Brandermill. A deep dive into the February 24th Community Update. We covered a lot of ground today, from upcoming votes and all those important financial matters to amenity renewals and ongoing maintenance efforts.
It's clear that there's always something going on in Brandermill, and staying informed is key to being an active and engaged member of this great community.
And remember, this deep dive has really just scratched the surface. For all the details and to stay up to date, check out the full community update on the Brandermill Community Association website.
And most importantly, stay connected, stay engaged, and keep shaping the future of Brandermill.